Hey, buds. Welcome to the first ever episode of Box Office Buds. We are normally the Pullbox Pals, but something that Mad, who is on the other side of the screen, and
Yes, I am
myself,
here. I am.
he's just having fun on his cell phone. And
Yep.
Monk over here, uh, we made a joke about this one time in an episode of our normal podcast, Pullbox Pals, and we said that we would save that to be the place that we talk about movies and TV shows that we've been watching. And ironically, I don't think we're going to be talking about any movies this week. Maybe a little bit. I did watch.
Maybe.
I did watch some movies that I wouldn't mind chit chatting about. Um, but I'm like super excited about this to just be able to just kind of focus on these things.
Yeah. No, I've been looking forward to this, and like this is very sporadic. Like we've been talking about doing something like this for a while, and it really wasn't until like last night, honestly, that was like, yeah, I think we can do this on Saturday night.
Well, I think maybe we did. Yeah, no, it was after the last episode of Poolbox Pals, or else we would have announced it. And I
Yeah.
also felt like we have some stuff coming up, and I didn't want to tangle it, and it just seemed like a perfect time with Ahsoka wrapping up and Loki kicking off.
Yeah. No, so it's pretty exciting, and like I guess just to kind of get into it, but it's Loki, I've stated before, is my favorite MCU like Disney Plus series. Like I love season one so much, and I really liked this beginning, which we'll talk more, I'm sure. But just also with Ahsoka, like I'm just very happy with it.
Mm,
Like
this is going to be a good conversation then.
it is and I understand a lot of like the critiques, like
We'll get there, but yeah.
but it was just like really well done as far as like the overall story goes of Star Wars.
Yeah.
At
We
least
should.
in my humble opinion.
We'll get there because I feel like there's a lot to unpack with that statement, because I think the question of what is Star Wars is a great question. And I mean, now at this point, Star Wars is a brand, so it kind of supersedes.
No, it's a huge IP.
Yeah. And so it has this different variety to it. It can have kid shows. It can have shows like Andor. But again, at the heart of it, what is Star Wars? That's a good question. Maybe I'll try to write that down somewhere so we do kind of go back to that. But yeah, I mean, I kind of hinted at it, and I mean, it's all over the place if you've been following us. But we're going to be chatting Ahsoka season 1 and Loki season 2 episode 1. I might have said that. I feel like, again, I just hinted at it, but I just want to say that is the plan for what we're doing now. We're switching it up.
We're throwing it into a bag and mixing it up, just seeing what we get.
Like you're pulling names from a hat for a competition, like it's Harry Potter.
Ooh, that would have been fun if we just had like a hat of
a goblet of fire.
Star Wars questions and Loki questions.
Oh, that would be cool. I mean, that's what we have the chat for. Oh, I actually just realized that we have a comment. Did either of y'all pick up Monica this week? Carl, we're not here to talk about comics. We're here to talk about movies and TVs. I'm just kidding. No. What? I don't even know what that is. Let us know in the comments and we'll come back.
Yeah. No, I haven't. I didn't pick up Monica. I don't know if it was on my radar. Maybe if I saw the cover of it, I might know. But yeah, we're here to talk.
Google.
And this is the other thing. Like, it's called Box Office Buds, and that's typically like box office is particular to movies, not like TV series. But
we'll talk about movies eventually. We got a K-bye. Don't leave us. Please be here,
Carl.
We want to hear your thoughts about Monica as well as Ahsoka and Loki if you watched, or just whatever, and maybe we'll just pick and choose what comments we want to pull up. We have the power here. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you want to get into it? Is there anything else that we can say before it? I'm going to save Carl's comment for later, but there's a little sneak peek of where we'll go, because we're going to be talking about Ahsoka first, correct? I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it just wrapped up, and it just makes sense. It wraps up, Loki starts, so we'll go in
we'll
that
end
order.
with the beginning, or we'll begin with an ending, and we'll end with a beginning. Perfect.
Yeah.
We're switching things up, baby. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would love for you to take the rings on this, and
Okay.
then just maybe lay out what this story is, kind of set up what Ahsoka, the television show,
Yeah,
is.
but I mean, it still goes back and begs the question of what you brought to the table of like, what is Star Wars?
Yeah.
And like, I think Star Wars is just something that is personal to a group of people around the world, um, especially in like Western civilization. But like George Lucas, you know, was pretty adamant that like Star Wars is for the kids, and so I might also twist that to say like Star Wars is for like the kid in us, like as we get
Yeah.
older, and I think that Star Wars is at least like with Ahsoka and a lot of the Disney Plus shows, like they are made for kids, but they are also still made for like the kids who grew up watching Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I just really liked about Ahsoka, and having Dave Filoni just run the show completely, continue to tell the story that of a character that he developed alongside George Lucas. And you know, Dave has always gone back to George with like big questions about like what to do with Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that the way that it played out throughout Ahsoka, it really did just like honor like the George Lucas story.
I thought you were going to say the George Lucas in us all. And I was
The
like,
George, yes, the George in us all. But just, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I 100% would agree that I would agree that I see it there. Again, I just going back to what is Star Wars, and I think that that's something, I really do like that you say that it's for the kid in us, because I do think that for kids, and then it becomes the kid in us. But then, again, there's something like Andor that I do think, and that really nailed what Star Wars is on the head,
Yeah.
I did something today. This isn't really about Ahsoka, but I did want to bring this up. I watched Revenge of the Sith and Rogue One.
Correct. Okay.
Which are like kind of the like two polar opposites when it comes to Star Wars, and what Star Wars can be to some degree. Because they're both very political, which all of Star Wars is not necessarily in like message per se, which it is, but it's all kind of, it's around this political war, but it was just interesting to see kind of this, like, again, I think how the Revenge of the Sith starts as like this big space opera, like big giant battle, and Rogue One just kind of starts with this like small family, like them living in this little hut,
Yeah.
And so in my head, I'm like, one of these movies feels so much more like A New Hope, and it's not the one that's directed by the same guy who did it, weirdly enough, for me, and so like I think, and I think a lot of people have said this, I'm definitely not the first person to say this, but I don't know if George Lucas knows what makes Star Wars good. And so it's weird for me to say this, but like I don't know if he's necessarily the person that I trust the most when it comes to what is Star Wars, even though he should be the guy who defines it.
Yeah, but this is where I'll also say, like, for Star Wars, for George Lucas, if you look at his time span with it, Star Wars was always something that was malleable to him. And like
That's true.
And we've talked about this before, but just because he did keep updating and making the original trilogy the way that he wanted to, like while they were in his possession. Like, yeah, it didn't come out every year a new updated version, or like every few months. It was like he spent time like adjusting them essentially to better tell a story that he dreamed up. But he also, I think he does understand like Star Wars is something that, yes, he created, but he also like gave it to the fans and like the people who like really appreciate it. And so like I don't think he, and this might be a little extreme, but he's not like a Star Wars like tyrant, like I know all and everything, like, because he has collaborated with other people to tell that story. I mean, like Thrawn comes out of Timothy Zahn's novels from the 80s, like late 80s, early 90s.
Sure. Let's say around that time. I'll look
and
it up.
And that's a character, again, like when Disney bought up the like Lucasfilm, like Disney went back to Timothy Zahn, is like, we need you to like tell more of Thrawn's story, and like let him do that. But it was a character that he created for Star Wars and not George Lucas. But like, George, what comes to mind is like with the Robot Chicken guys, when George Lucas is in on a prank about like who created Mara Jade. Mara Jade comes from this trilogy, and he just gets super angry at the guy for suggesting that like he created her or something like that. Have you seen what I'm talking about?
No, I haven't.
Oh man. But yeah, it's just like a joke, because like he knows he didn't create it, and like she's a very popular character with like the people who grew up reading like what is now Legends.
Right. Yeah.
But it was still just like a character that George allowed to continue to develop like in this universe that he created, and bringing in other characters that other people had the ideas for, and like working with them on that. And so it's just, I would argue that like, yes, George created it, and he is like the most go-to guy you can have, but is he perfect at like understanding the thing he created? No, because I don't think he does understand just how much of an effect it really like made on like,
I think it's incomprehensible. I think it's like it was like just a perfect storm, like, and I think that that's kind of the case with like all kind of great pieces of art, is just like it just happens to work,
Because I'll tell you this much, like if he had waited, after American Graffiti or whatever he made before A New Hope, if he had waited and then started with episodes 1, 2, and 3 in the late 90s and early 2000s, like Star Wars would not be as big as it is.
Yeah.
Like just the place in the story where he decided to start it, on top of like the timing on which it was released and originally made, like it hit it
was
out
like a
park.
nuclear bomb. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, we're almost a quarter of the way done this episode, and we haven't talked about the show at all. So let's get into it.
That's a good intro.
Yeah.
Well, a couple things I want to throw out to you, just as because I like numbers. The numbers on this, like IMDb has it at a 7.8 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes has an 88%, and 73% of Google users like it.
There you go.
I think that's, if you average those out, that's essentially a 7.8.
I would say that's pretty almost fair.
For me personally, I would probably reverse that 7 and 8 and give it an 8.7. I might even drop it back an 8.6.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about. I've been asking, tell me.
I'm just trying to put little place markers. That's all. But yeah, so Ahsoka is, if you haven't watched Rebels and Clone Wars, then she's a new character to you, and she is the Padawan of Anakin Skywalker, who we all know becomes Darth Vader. And this story of Ahsoka, this live action version, takes place like years after like Darth Vader's like gone, like probably like what, 8 years, maybe
5, 8, something like
that. And she's grown up and she's older. Like if you hadn't seen the Clone Wars and Rebels, like Ahsoka walked away from the Order of the Jedi, or the Jedi Order. There we go.
I'm sure it said both ways.
Yeah. And so yeah, she is kind of this like Ronin rogue Jedi, and her story between Clone Wars and Rebels, like that's even separated by a few years because she was gone, right? She like had disappeared.
Yeah. Just because she wasn't in the movies.
Like
so
everybody assumed, everybody assumed she died at the hands of Vader at one point for like a long time.
Right, and she kind of got ripped out of time, and that's in Rebels.
Yeah. And so this story just continues a lot of like what the series of Rebels is about, which is a crew of Hera Syndulla, and Ahsoka's not really a part of this crew, but she comes in and out of it. Sabine Wren, who else was
Ezra Bridger,
Kanan
Jarrus, Zeb, who has a cameo in The Mandalorian but does not appear in this show.
That's an issue that I want to take up. Like
we don't have to get into that. It's just for me, I'm just like it's not on the same level, but it's similar in vein to The Mandalorian having his own episodes in the Book of Boba Fett. Just being like, this not where him belong. Like, know you like they're switching things up. Like, why would you have not done that? Like, why was he not at the return scene? Like, anyways, well, we don't have to get into that. But you're doing a fantastic job. I love this. You're so good at this. Is why I love you recapping stories.
I'm trying to get it all in,
You're looking at her Wikipedia page.
I actually just have Google up, and I'm just like,
there you go.
Kind of looking.
So do I. Mine says Monica comment.
The first episode aired on August 22nd.
There you go. I knew that.
But yeah, so like Ahsoka's story is just like special just because she was the Padawan of Anakin Skywalker, and she walked away from the Jedi Order, and she continued to kind of follow the light, but always kind of be a couple steps back from it.
Yeah.
And in Clone Wars, she actually like dies in another episode, but gets revived by the sister.
Okay. And that's connected with this.
And that's where that owl comes from.
Okay.
Like the sister, the sister is like the embodiment of the owl that shows up whenever Ahsoka has like a meaningful moment with the Force.
See, I can't even picture the owl, and maybe I was just like, maybe I suppressed it. I don't know why would I love an owl, but I can't even imagine it.
The owl's in the finale.
I thought I think I must have just been looking away or something, because I even remember my fiance saying something about an owl.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, since you brought up the fact that like this is kind of a continuation of Rebels, I was kind of waffling back and forth on whether or not like the introduction to this world or these characters was done well.
Yeah.
And like, or in like a way that would make them seem like interesting.
Yeah.
And here's
that is a critique too. Yeah, I want to get into.
Sure. It's not so much a critique. Here's what I'm trying to get to a point. And it's that in A New Hope, you just kind of just jump right in, and you're just like, you meet these robots. This one robot, a droid rather, gets a transmission, whatever it is, a message from a lady. They go off on a quest. Like, it just kicks off right away.
Yeah.
And I think we see that a little bit with this, but the first couple episodes rather are pretty much just setting up it as a sequel to Rebels, whereas I think it would have been more beneficial if it jumped into the action rather than having that time of like reflection and whatever, because I feel like it did go on a little too long. And I think that was the benefit of A New Hope, that you just dove into this space opera and you didn't have to, you didn't have time to be like, well, who are these people? What's this? Because it's all happening and it's all enjoyable as it's happening. I think I would have forgiven. Like, I talked to other people who were like, I don't understand these characters because I didn't watch these other things. But I guess what I'm trying to ask, maybe even or say, is like, is the fact that Rebels existed prior to this, I don't want to say a hindrance, but like, I think people are too dependent on looking back on those things, and this story should have been independently good and portrayed who these characters are.
Yeah.
But these characters have such a big history behind them that they can't do the hindsight thing of that, we got to do that, but like George Lucas got to do with the original trilogies and the prequels. He had some time to kind of flesh it out and whatever, but Dave Filoni already has all that kind of fleshed out, and now he's kind of bringing this in as an introduction for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And
no, you're right.
And so I'm going back and forth. So because I'm like, I think it could have been done very well and very Star Warsian, because again, Rogue One does that same thing where it just jumps right in on this family and you just follow them and you go. I think we could have seen that. Here's a question though. I mean, well, what's your thoughts on what I just said? But I do have a question for you then.
Yeah, no, it does, like, and I think that's the thing. Like, Filoni understood that a lot of people probably haven't watched like Clone Wars and Rebels. They probably have seen Ahsoka appear in Mandalorian, and did she appear in it? It's just Mandalorian, right? Yeah.
Maybe the Book of Boba Fett. I don't know. Who knows? No one on Earth knows.
Yeah. Because arguably, Book of Boba Fett is I'm sorry, it's just really bad.
It is really bad. It's not arguable.
I love. I know there's people that probably do love it.
Sure, that's fair. It is arguable, as most things are, and it's just art, so it 100% is. But
like I think my favorite thing about Book of Boba Fett is just the live action introduction of Chrysanthemum.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Like that. Like, that's really all I walked away with from that, because then, like, the last 3 episodes became Mando season 2.5.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's just bring it back to Ahsoka.
Yeah.
We didn't even really get into the story of what it's like she's doing.
Well, yeah, I was kind of trying to get there. That's why I mentioned Thrawn as well. And so, like, Thrawn and Ahsoka are 2 characters that were developed by other people that were not George Lucas, but George Lucas had their ears about how to, like, keep these in line with, like, the story that's already being told with Han, Luke, Leia, and Chewie, and C-3PO and R2, and blah, 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 all of them. And just intertwining those things together. And so, like, they both come into this as the main protagonist and main antagonist, like, with their own histories that are outside of George Lucas in a sense. And there is so much of, like, what you need to know about Rebels and Ahsoka's time in Clone Wars that really helps you understand, and, like, I think this is, like, for me, like, I can get past certain people playing characters because I don't think they're doing a good job. I don't know how much I want to say, like, who I didn't like playing a certain role or anything, but I might reveal that.
We'll get to characters then if we. I mean, I feel this is going to be a longer than we expect it to be, but
yeah. So, like, I don't know. I kind of see it from this view of, like, I love creators. I love reading what people can write, because I'm not, like, the greatest of creators. I'm not, like, a good, like, I can recap things, but, like, when it comes to, like, me developing my own things, like, it's not something I'm great at.
It's hard. It's very hard. And we're just
so, like,
yeah.
So I do just appreciate, like, the creators of the characters and just what it has melded into. And so, like, Ahsoka, I'll try and make this short just to get to the show, but, like,
you're doing great, and I love you.
at the end of Rebels, essentially, Ezra and Thrawn have disappeared. They've gone off to a galaxy far, far away,
Haha.
and um, and it's kind of Ahsoka. Like part of Ahsoka's like mission and her overall mission becomes to like figure out where Ezra is,
Mm-hmm.
and like that's kind of where this show picks up. And like how do we get to Ezra and how do we bring him home? Like that's kind of like I think like what the series started as like the mission, and that's why Sabine comes back in. Sabine, uh, during the time in between this series and the end of Rebels, Sabine has become Ahsoka's Padawan,
Mm-hmm.
and Sabine and Ezra were really close. They were like brother and sister throughout the Rebels series. Like they had their like it was a crew, but they were family. Like that's what Rebels was,
Right.
and uh so like they have to team up back together.
Oh, to
Sorry,
continue.
apparently I
You.
hit a button on my watch.
Oh
um
no.
I probably like awoke Siri on my watch and thought I was talking to her, and then was like, you need to go to your device to figure this out. I'm not trying to figure anything out, Siri. um but yeah, so it becomes their mission to find Ezra, but also finding Ezra means you're going to find Thrawn probably, and Thrawn is the heir to the Empire.
Yeah, and this kind of where like I don't want to say it's, and I don't like being the person. Maybe I do like being the person that like talks down on things because I don't want to do that. But it like again, I think especially there's some episodes in this where it does do a good job of portraying that they're in a war, of
Yeah,
being like, listen, we have a soldier who made the ultimate sacrifice, and if there's a potential, this is like a Batman versus Superman moment. If there's if
yeah,
there's a 1% chance that Thrawn can come back to the galaxy because of our actions, then none of those actions are worth taking.
yeah,
That soldier intentionally made the sacrifice that was the hero move, you know?
yeah,
And so like there's no amount of
for the Empire.
for the uh what?
Just like the hero move for the Empire. You're talking about Thrawn, right? Like what he
No,
did.
I'm talking about Ezra.
Oh,
Ezra
okay.
makes the
I
hero
thought you were
move.
talking about Thrawn, and I was like, yes, like in that. And then, sorry, from the perspective of the Empire, like Thrawn did a hero move, but he didn't really do it because Ezra is the one that got them sent off. But sorry,
Sure.
I interrupted.
Um
Go on.
no. Yeah, I just like, and the fact that like, so like we're just gonna, I think we're gonna have a hard time if we just kind of go directly through this. We'll try to do that as best as possible.
Yeah,
But if you listen to the main pod, we talked about how in the first episode there was like this like uh Ahsoka finds a ball that's essentially a map to
yeah,
where Ezra is. For some reason she has
yeah.
that.
How that works, I don't know,
No
but
one knows. Like again, I think it's the space whale whatever. It has something to do with, there's the space whales that brought them into the hyperspace. It's their like migration routes, so it
yeah,
has something of like coordination on that. But again, it just pops up out of nowhere, like,
yeah.
and so
I think they're called
yeah,
the
uh,
Purgle,
who knows?
the
I'm not going
whales.
to waste time thinking about, oh, the whales. Yeah, they're called something like that.
Yeah,
But
Purgle.
yeah, Sabine hands this. They have it, and she hands it over to who we haven't talked about yet. The two like dark Jedi.
Yeah,
Who's
so Balin Skull and Shin Haiti.
yes,
Yeah,
and they did both do a fantastic job. They're
yeah.
like some of the best like characters
They're
in
they
this.
they're some of the best parts of the series.
Yeah, and I think probably because they're original characters. Honestly, there's
Yeah,
not that weight of expectation on them. They can just be whatever they are, you know.
yeah,
Um, but anyways, she just hands it over to them, and she's like, they're like, "We'll promise to take you with us." And it's like, okay, like that's just, it's again, it's not like any logic person like. And my fiance was saying this while we were watching it, that like the Sabine in do this, she would understand that that was the sacrifice play. And I
yeah,
think like they really sold Sabine short in this, because she was like the leaders of the Mandalorian. She wielded the dark saber that's in canon that, like, like the Mandalorian couldn't yield. And again, like, this whole series, for some reason, they try to make her a Jedi, which doesn't need to be a thing.
Yeah.
I think Dave Filoni is trying to do a little bit of the course correction of Return of the Skywalker, or whatever that awful movie is called.
Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, great name, J.J. Abrams. Sorry, maybe I'm a little too tired to just not be pulling my punches. But yeah, I think in The Last Jedi, they try to make Rey not special, and then make the Force be like, this is for everybody. And then in The Rise of Skywalker, they're like, no, this Rey is actually special. And in Ahsoka, they're like, Dave Filoni's like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna show that the Force is for even people who can't sense the Force in Sabine, even though we have a character who was never formally trained in the Jedi Council or anything, who is like one of the main like drives of the show to go and get. Like, why did you not be like, we have this Jedi who's out there who wasn't trained by Jedis. He doesn't come from any lineage, like, he is the perfect example of random person Force, And for some reason, they're like, we're going to put this on Sabine. The characterization is just wildly different from Rebels. And like, I don't understand why he was, I don't, again, like,
that's an aspect of the show that felt like forced. No pun intended, but like,
yeah, I 100% agree with you, because I also think that you can be someone's like mentor and a Padawan relationship without it being directly related to Jedi and Force related things.
Right. But I don't know, like, a lot of the like stuff that I've read and watched always points to like George Lucas in an interview did say that anybody can access the Force. It's like it's like you have, like, some people are just more apt to it, others really have to learn how to train.
Yeah, it's the midichlorians in you. How many you got?
Yeah, and so it's just like, it did feel like a little bit forced, if like that's why they were like, oh, why don't we show that that's true, and let's have like put that on Sabine. I would have rather have seen Sabine just be the Sabine we knew from Rebels.
Yeah, she doesn't do much Mandalorian stuff at all. She wears her helmet like 3 times.
With what they gave us, like, it wasn't so bad to me that like it distracted me from really enjoying the overall like story.
I would agree. Yeah. I think it's more of just, but here's the thing. I don't think personally that while I don't want it to sound like I hated this at all. I genuinely, and I've never felt like I've swung between like, I'm not enjoying this and this is really good.
Yeah.
Like Ahsoka in a spacesuit, like, that's, for me, that's kind of just like, no one needed that.
That wasn't new though. That's like,
even if it's not new, it's like, I'm like, sure. Like, it's just, I don't think fan service needs, like, even if it's like, all because it's existed prior doesn't mean that it's what needs to, it just doesn't,
just because it existed doesn't mean it needs to be brought back.
Right. Yeah. Like, and I think that we're in this like terrible circle of like pointing back at things, like, and Marvel kind of did this of just like, oh, isn't it so cool to reference things? It's like, not really, like, if you're not doing it in like a clever way. And I just that whole thing, I was just like, what? It was just like, it wasn't, even if it was just a reference to something, it didn't feel like it was innovative of it, or it just felt out of nowhere, or I don't know. I don't want to talk about that one scene. Here's the question that I want to throw to you.
Okay.
Why is this show called Ahsoka?
Yeah. It because it really does. It, like, I'm more of a fan of calling it Rebels Season 5, or like calling it Rebels and giving it a subtitle just because it's now live action,
Rebels
like,
Ahsoka.
Maybe call it Rebels Ahsoka.
Yeah. Like, or Rebels Sabine, which it should have been. This should have been the Sabine show.
Yeah, but they're also not the rebels anymore because they're the New Republic.
Fair,
So,
but I mean, they are rebelling.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of there's a lot of plot that I feel like we're probably going to go over because there's 7 episodes and a lot of like
Well,
stuff
because
happens.
I mean, there's one episode that
Only one? I
no,
watched the wrong thing then. I'm just kidding.
no. There's one episode where Ahsoka's only in it for the intro of the episode.
Good.
And it's
Which
like
one?
Which one?
Oh, is it one that's like mostly focused on Sabine?
Yeah, on Sabine finding.
Oh, is it like
Ezra.
number? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the one when the droid, goodness
Chopper?
gracious. No, not Chopper. The
I
like
love Chopper.
The Jedi droid, the one who helps build lightsabers.
Huang Yu, something like that.
Yeah. Shoot, I lost where I got too distracted.
It's an episode where he does something.
Oh, he says a galaxy far, far away.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. How did you feel about that?
I thought it was cool, honestly. I was like, oh, that's just like fun because I mean they do it again in the finale. Like another thing I really liked, I didn't necessarily like how it was delivered, but just the idea of it when in the finale when Ahsoka asks Sabine, like, have you been keeping up on your training? And she's like, I try. And she's like, I do.
Yeah.
And funny. It's a cool callback to Empire Strikes Back. It wasn't something that was like really over the top. Like it was pretty subtle. Like I really enjoyed that. But
I will say it's very much, I'm like, when I saw that or heard that rather, I was like, Dave Filoni would be the one who thinks he could make that meta, you know?
Yeah.
Like be like, I can put this in here. I deserve this. I can put in this. But it was precious. I do like that character. I'm gonna say my favorite character overall, which is a carryover from Rebels, is Ezra. I really do love Ezra.
I think that okay. Let me say this first.
Okay.
I think Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka is great. I think she plays a great older, mature Ahsoka. Like, and just if you just think about how things like ended with her in in Clone Wars and Rebels, it's just an older, matured person. Like Rosario Dawson was also like a young kid. Her first movie was Kids.
I don't know.
I think. And she was like 13, 14 years old. And so it's just like she grew up and matured in her like acting career and she makes like more mature choices. And I just think that she was a great choice. There's nobody that I could name I think would do better or that I wish I would have seen cast in that role.
I agree. I 100% agree.
I think, yes, the person that they chose, I have it up, so I might as well look at it.
For Ezra.
Ezra, the guy they chose for Ezra, like
Aladdin.
Great. No, it's not Aladdin. It's Amon Esfandi.
He played Aladdin.
He's not the guy who played Aladdin.
He's not the guy who played Aladdin?
No, that's the guy. He was rumored to be the person to play Ezra for a long time. But
that's right, because I didn't see that movie. But now I also feel like I'm a bad person. But I do that. I think from like screen. Well, Sabine does a good job too. I think there's a very big character shift in Ahsoka that Rosario Dawson does a good job portraying. I think there could have been a little bit more life. And I swear to God, if I see her cross her arms one more time, my head might explode. There's other ways to stand. But again, I think that's just part of the lifelessness. It's just like standing there like this all the time, you know?
Yeah.
But I also think it's hard to act when you have like tentacles hanging down the side of your face, you know? So, but yeah, I mean, I really don't think that this show should have been called Ahsoka. It should have been called like
it should have had
it should have been
something like A New Hope or something like Rogue One, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Because it wasn't primarily about Ahsoka. The focus was on her journey, but
I feel like
it was also like the caveat to that is like her journey is also being told by like her connections with like Sabine and Ezra and Thrawn and just so yeah, she's not the overall star of the show, and like
Yeah.
that's like a tough pill to swallow. They named it Ahsoka, and it's not just fully about her.
Yeah. And it really doesn't, I mean, it taps on some things, but I definitely don't feel like it explores really anything of like her, you know?
Yeah,
It explores almost every other character more. Like even I would feel like there's more character development in the white haired dark Jedi girl, you know? But anyways, let's
Shin Haiti,
I yeah.
Hattie. I don't know.
I will say another
HT.
thing that I absolutely loved was Thrawn. I think
Yes,
that they, I mean, not only because the same guy who voice acted him, not Mads Mikkelsen, his
it's his
brother,
brother Lars.
Lars
Yeah,
Mikkelsen, whatever it is. He voices him in Rebels and does, I think, a very good job of just bringing that to the screen.
yeah.
Um,
He's a guy who like very much understands the character.
yep. I think he
And
brought him to life, so like
yeah, and
literally.
at that, I would say the people who do the audibles for the books that he's in do a really good job of like just capturing the essence of Thrawn as well. So,
Okay, cool.
but like, yeah, Lars did an amazing job. A lot of people kind of like, I don't really think it had anything to do with the character of Thrawn. I think it had more to do with like the way that Lars like stood or just like his posture. And at the same time, it's like Lars isn't like a young guy. Like
Oh yeah.
he's
Well,
probably gonna have a little bit of a hunch and like
oh yeah.
a
Well, and also
belly.
the like he's just been in a foreign, like in a wasteland.
Yeah,
I think his stormtrooper design is really cool. The fact that like they've like have clearly been through some stuff.
yeah,
I think it's there's a part of me that's like, oh, they all like that many people survived. Like you
yeah,
had food for that many people and all that stuff. But again, it's just like it's movie magic, so I can't
yeah.
really like question it. It's just whatever.
They found a way to survive, and like I think Ezra kind of touched on it in the finale or maybe the episode 7 about just like, yeah, Thrawn has been spending all this time like resourcing and fixing his ship, and like that's all he's been doing is just working with what he can resource, and like,
Right.
and that's very Thrawn, and like it also just
Mhm.
shows like Ezra as a person who also like he was watching his back. He knew Thrawn was like looking for him, regardless if Thrawn knew where he was or not.
Right.
Like,
I would have loved a scene of Ezra escape, like them being on the planet and him like getting out of the Star Destroyer.
yeah.
Like a scene of him like escaping from
Well,
Thrawn in this place and like, but yeah. Um,
I mean, even if it was like a short they did and just
mhm,
put it like, something that's like 7 to 23 minutes long
right.
of
Or
just
just
like,
the intro of an episode.
yeah,
Yeah.
like it'd be really cool to see that. And that's the thing too. I love how wide open the door is at the finale. Of just
Yeah.
there's Ezra's story that can be told. Well, Ezra and Hera,
Mhm.
and that whole crew that is in the, I guess, the original galaxy, far
Yeah.
far away.
Yeah.
Um, so there's that, and like Ezra's back in like this realm, I guess, and and then yeah, Ahsoka and Sabine are left on a planet, and uh who knows what their journeys can entail. Like maybe they are just there like how Yoda was on Dagobah, and just having to be in solitude and being with each other. But like that's also just great. Like that's a short story at least,
Yeah.
of their time. And then sadly, like, yeah, like if Balin Scroll ever comes back to live action, like Ray Stevenson will not be able to play him.
Yeah.
Like he
And I
did
definitely think that they are
he
because
did
they're clearly setting up something.
they're setting up something with him, and like his story is just, yeah, I love that him and Shin were original characters, and that they both have survived this series. Like I was wondering if either one of them would die like the whole
Mm,
time. um just
that's
like,
true.
like how Qui-Gon died while him and Obi-Wan fought Darth Maul. Like I wondered,
Right.
like, is Balin or Shin gonna die at the hands of Ahsoka or someone else? And that didn't happen. And both of their stories are like alive and well, and they were both very well developed characters throughout this series. And I just like, yeah, so if they do bring it back to live action with Balin's Skull, like who's gonna be able to do what Ray Stevenson did with that character?
That's gonna be a tough one.
The only person that comes to mind, but I don't think Disney wants to pay him because he's expensive, but I think like Russell Crowe would be able to do it.
Yeah, if he wanted to, but then it'd also have to be like you gained a bunch of pounds while on this planet, on this journey, while you were walking over mountains.
Space weight. I mean, isn't there a Gladiator 2 coming out?
Who knows?
Does he not have anything to do with that?
I don't know.
If there's Gladiator 2 coming out, he's probably trying to get in shape somehow. But yeah, I just don't know who could replace Ray Stevenson as Balin Skull.
You know who might be able to replace him, which is something that we need to talk about, is maybe we can get a zombie stormtrooper to replace him. What do you think of because you mentioned that Thrawn was out there kind of building his resources, and part of that was this planet is home to, and this is part of Balin's quest, is that this planet there's a temple to an old sorcerer or several sorcerers, or wherever this character of Morgan Ali's, whatever her name is, which is like almost a Morgan Elizabeth of a name, just took out a Z, I'm pretty sure is all they did with that, or an L. But they're really introducing magic, and it's not so much magic and like I don't know, it's magic connected to the Force.
Yeah, like the witches of Dathomir,
that's the word I can't say.
They wield the Force through magic or something like that, and it's
just like their interpretation of the Force is done through magic.
Yeah, so it's just like it's a whole other aspect of the Force, and it's one I'm honestly like interested in, and like I've always loved the episodes of Clone Wars and Rebels whenever Darth Maul would make an appearance. Because usually the sisters of or like the Night Sisters would also be involved in some way, or like the witches of Dathomir. That's another thing I really liked about Jedi Fallen Order. Like just that whole like playing through Dathomir on that was just like so like fun and exciting for me. Like I really enjoyed that. That's just like an aspect that I really like about Star Wars. Through Clone Wars and Rebels is whenever these characters showed up, because it's such like a mysterious like spot still. Like we know a little bit, but there's still just so much more in the depths of.
Well, that's what I definitely think that's going to be explored in a greater capacity here.
Yeah, because that's where Thrawn ends up, right?
Yeah, I mean that's where they end up on. So the planet that they're stranded on in the other galaxy has, I believe, a temple on it or something like that. But there's also those witches there. So that too has some sort of connection to like this dark, like the witches of Dathomir thing. I think that the planet that they're on is like where they're like the old galaxy died, and that was like the last remnant of it or something like that.
Yeah.
But either way, they're kind of bringing in this old magic, but their plan, I believe, is to like bring back these like zombies into the main universe and kind of like infect it. I don't know what the plan is, other than like it. I just zombies stormtroopers was not kind of on my bingo card of things I was expecting in the Ahsoka series.
But I think that was another callback to like Rebels, maybe, or even Clone Wars. Like it happened before with the Witches of Dathomir, where they had like risen up some bodies to do their bidding.
Right. And then I think I knew that, because it doesn't matter if I knew that or not. I think that whole scene would have, again, like just comparing it to like Rogue One. I think when you're watching Rogue One, you're very like sucked up in like the realism of it all.
Yeah.
And this, like, they're like, we have to get on this spaceship or we're going to be stranded in a foreign galaxy. And there's times where they're stopped to being like, haha, quippy whip, like just making a like funny joke. And then like And I'm just like, you would be sprinting your ass off to try to get, like, imagine if you were on a plane, like you're in Europe and it's the last plane to America. You don't think that you would be
Ever.
like, yeah, ever, like you don't think you would be doing everything, scraping, whatever. Like you wouldn't, like that
I
battle
would grab onto the wheel, man.
like that battle that she has with Morgan doesn't make sense to me because it's like there's times where she has her back to the you can do we've seen Jedi do this in the prequels where they have fights while moving around, and
And
all of their fights are like we're taking place in the volume right now,
yeah,
so we can't be moving around too much because we're in a circle that we're CGIing
yeah.
everything.
So
And
that brings me to like just the lightsaber fights. Like they
I feel like they swing wildly in quality.
that and it was just like I think the highlight, like, just I don't know, whatever our thing would be compared to a Razzie Award for this, like the fight scenes, was just when Ahsoka like went and kicked off of a rock.
I don't
Like,
remember that one. Which
it's when she was fighting Balin, like when she like died,
I think I kind of yeah.
and she like runs up to a rock like to run away from him, and then just like jumps onto the rock and hops off of it. And I'm like that's just something that like really lost me with like the way they presented the lightsaber fights.
Yeah.
The best like blade to blade fight was honestly for me the one in the finale between Ahsoka and Morgan.
Yeah. But
Like
again, I don't think that fight really needed to exist other than
yeah,
like kind of cap off that. And Morgan just kept her character was like, I just exist to say things to set up Thrawn to be like, you fool. Like she's like, we will absolutely destroy the Jedi. And
yeah.
he's like, why are you so stupid? Um, have you never worked with a Jedi? This one Jedi beat you before in battle,
Yeah.
Um, and sorry, I cut you off from where you were kind of going
Oh,
with the
that's
Star
fine.
Wars. But I think that's just a product of the time of just I feel like they're very compact. They're probably seeing these battles like they are choreographed. They're learning them like a dance move, and it's not as authentic as it could be.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the reason that the best that we've been able to see is in the prequels because they've had the time and the money to dedicate to those, all the best CGIing, Emperor Palpatine's head onto a younger man's body,
Yeah.
to do a spinny spin.
Yeah.
But all right, well, we're almost an hour in and we still got another thing to talk about. So
Yeah.
again,
Well,
I'll just finish this by saying that like I don't I really do I love Star Wars, but I feel like it's branching out farther than like uh I I care that I feel like it's branching out farther than the quality of the programming can continue to grasp me in a way that like is really like in
yeah.
meaningful and not just like, oh, I like this thing so I watch it, you know?
Yeah.
And I really want to go back and rewatch it because I think that he does a lot of foreshadowing of things. Like, remember that guy turning to dust when they were in the forest? I imagine that
Yeah.
he was a zombie, but at the time, I'm just like, well, that's stupid,
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I feel like there's just a lot of things that could have been done better, but I love Ezra, I love Sabine, like
Yeah.
Ahsoka. I just don't have that connection to because I've never watched Clone Wars.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Yeah, I really
those are
like
my thoughts.
Ahsoka.
What I would give it I don't like. I need to do a second watch, but it would be somewhere between like a 6 and a 5. So like a 5.8, maybe. I'll
Okay.
go a little bit higher. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right. It's probably higher. Um,
Well,
you,
how about you watch it again?
I think I will
Yeah.
probably maybe.
And I don't. I think this is like known about me, but like I do watch it like multiple times. I think I didn't go super hard into this one. I only rewatched it once. Like I would watch the latest episode, and then the next day, if I was doing like office work or whatever, I would put it on and
Yeah,
like watch it that way. But
I need to start doing that.
But yeah, no, I just really enjoyed it. I don't get too into like the details of like I'm not like, yes, the lightsaber fights like bothered me, but they didn't take me out of just like wanting to know more of the story of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing too we didn't really talk about that I really enjoyed was just I really like this redemption of Anakin Skywalker because I think it makes sense, um, especially in the scene when Ahsoka and Anakin are like fighting, and it's like a lesson to teach her like, do you want to live or do you want to survive? You know, like that was kind of the point of it all. And as he's like transitioning toward her, going between like looking like Darth Vader and looking like Anakin, and then he's Anakin with a red blade.
Mm-hmm.
Just showing like, yes, because George has always said he is the chosen one.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't like that's it. Like Anakin is the chosen one. He was supposed to bring balance to the Force. Well, I think that scene and what they did justice to Anakin Skywalker, and you can also argue Darth Vader as well, but just finding balance within themselves in the Force and not just limiting themselves to one aspect of it.
Yeah.
And so like that was a small like subplot throughout the series, but I did just enjoy it. I enjoyed the series overall, and I probably I'll land on a 8.4 that after this discussion. I'm landing at an 8.4.
Nice. I will definitely follow up on that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Um,
I did genuinely enjoy it. There was not a time where I didn't regret watching any of the episodes.
yeah.
But
Um, but yeah, also this week Loki came out, season 2, episode 1. I don't think we have to get super into it because it's just the first episode. But I really like it just because like I think the writing of it's really clever.
mm-hmm.
Just how like there's essentially a storm going on and everybody's trying to figure out what to do, and like that's kind of the series overall is like, oh, Loki's here. Like Loki's this variant who's just this anomaly,
Mm-hmm.
and like they're all just trying to wrap their minds around having Loki and Loki on the loose, understanding what the TVA is, and then going on to figure out who uh King the Conqueror is. And like that's what gets played out more now in episode 1 is Loki's becoming privy to Kang is like running this show.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know why, but I wasn't expecting it to like pick up on such a cracking pace,
Yeah.
like it picks up and just pretty much just hits the ground running.
Yeah.
And I kind of lament not watching uh the season finale prior to this of season
Mm,
1, so I would kind of know where they were at, because it took me a hot minute of being like, and we even watched the recap, I think.
yeah.
I think, yeah, we did watch the recap because I was like, but I'm like, did she like? I don't. It was just. It took me a minute to catch up. Um, but it was interesting because I think everyone thought that at the end of season 1 that he went off to a parallel universe where he actually went back in time, and I thought
Yeah.
that was interesting. So this story pretty much picks up right again, like I said, just after season 1, where Loki has just kind of discovered what is at the end of the Citadel at the end of time.
Yeah.
And it's He Who Remains, which is a variant of Kang the Conqueror. He essentially is like, hey, we can either run this together, or you two can run this together with me, or something. I forget if it's like with me or you can kill me. And I think
Yeah.
Loki tries to stop him, but or sorry, Loki tries to stop Sylvie from killing him. She kicks him into like the past, and
Yeah.
then she kills him, and then
She
that's
kills He Who Remains.
He's Who Remains.
And
Sorry.
he says, see you
See
soon.
you soon. Which, yeah, it's very good. There's obviously stuff happening with Jonathan Majors in real life that we don't need to dive into, but it is a shame because there's a part
Yeah.
of me that's like, he's such a good actor. I would
He's
love to see. Yeah.
He's so good at playing Kang.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, my favorite part of the episode was when they go to see Obi, or whose name is what's his real
Obelisk?
No, maybe Obelisk, or is it the Ouroboros?
Or Ouroboros?
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember. But it's yeah, he is this, like, he's the guy who fixes everything that breaks inside of the TVA.
Yeah.
And so Loki, if you watch the trailers, he's like glitching, like from the Spider-Man animated movies, the Into the Spider-Verse movies. But instead of, it's different because he's glitching, he's doing what they're called time sliding instead of
Slipping.
Time slipping. And he's going back and forth at different points on the timeline. And I think I'm surprised that they stopped him from doing that, because I feel like that was
Ouroboros.
Ouroboros. Okay. Yeah. I feel like it's interesting that they, at the end of the episode, spoiler for all this, by the way, they fix it that he's not doing that anymore. He goes through a process in which he doesn't. But I feel like that was a really cool, like, storytelling device, because again, going back to my favorite scene when they're talking to Obi, he's Loki is time slipping between that moment and in the past, where he is telling him everything that he needs to. If you need to go off, I can talk.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah. And in that scene, I really enjoy it because you get to see just yeah, it's just fun storytelling narrative that I don't really think I've seen before, at least not. I'm sure it's definitely been done, this aspect of somebody back in time telling, because these people that live within the TVA, they live for hundreds of years, you know, so, or forever, like they just kind of seem like they're immortal at this point, or they would say that they don't really experience time. But it's something in that we're seeing in this episode, is that while Loki is going back and forth at different points on the timeline, there's, you know, different people, quote unquote, ruling the TVA. Sometimes it's Kang, sometimes it's those three robot people. But yeah, it was just really cool to see him telling, like, this, the way that they had him learning that in real time, and then it going into the future. So Loki's ability to do that, it was weird that they took it away. And I will also say, if they don't use it, then why did he have it? You know, like, I feel like they spent a lot of time in that episode fixing that issue.
I'm wondering, because in the preview there's a scene, and I haven't rewatched this episode yet. I probably will tonight. There's a scene in the preview where they're standing outside of like a jet ski place. Doesn't he time slip from there?
I don't know. I really didn't watch much of the trailers for this because I knew I was going to watch it. I didn't want to. I just didn't want to have anything ruined for me.
I hadn't really watched. I watched the trailer, or like the teaser trailer, like when it first came out, but I hadn't actually seen the trailer for it. And I had watched it because it was like being advertised on Disney Plus. I had watched it, I think, the night before it released, and that was like the first time. And I kind of remember a scene outside of a jet ski store, and in my memory, he time slips from there, and I don't remember that being in this episode.
No, I don't think it would have been either, or was rather. Yeah, but I mean, I feel like everyone did a phenomenal job acting. We kind of see, I love how, like, it's very true to how, like, if something like this happened, it would actually happen, because the TVAs run off this idea of that there's these three time masters, and that they've controlled time, and that they don't want other timelines branching off, because there is just this one sacred timeline. It's about keeping that pure. And Sylvie wants to liberate people from that, because she's like, you're killing other timelines, like all these other people, you're just obliterating.
Yeah.
And then they realize through Loki's revelation and Loki's conversation with He Who Remains, that the reason that he's doing this is because he's stopping it, like, from all these other variants just going and ruling all these other timelines, you know? Or just hopping through timelines and just causing mess. whatever,
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because they're at this moral dilemma that was brought in at the end of season 2 and the kind of the ramifications of it all still.
I mean,
And
season 1.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, and yeah, they're trying to fix it. It was really cool to see how like they were talking about like it takes there's a machine that takes raw time and then essentially weaves it into like the main timeline, and that
Yeah.
it was you could see that it was overflowing because it was taking in too much time. Yeah, I just thought that that was really cool.
Yeah.
And
Um,
maybe I can just even say this is like a comparison between the two things that we're talking about is I feel like Loki did a lot of like cool, innovative stuff with maybe things that we've seen before in the past. But I mean, even like folding
well, it's very,
time.
it's a very practical show.
Yeah.
It's shot with, a practical set. Like it's not in a volume like Star Wars is shot.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, the effects there, it's all just like, other than him time slipping and certain other things, it's all like practical.
Yeah. And I think that you can't overstate the importance of that because it just, you can tell when you're in a room that's like really there, not just like a room with, they did so many just random pillar rooms on Ahsoka. But
Yeah.
I guess not rooms, but like settings. Anyways, I don't know if I have anything else that I want to say about Loki other than
Yeah.
I
I mean,
enjoyed it.
I missed maybe about a minute of what you said, but
There was nothing to just yeah, it was nothing worth going back to.
but
You'll have to listen
yeah,
back
no,
to the
I
playback.
really liked it. I I've been I really like season 1. I like how season 2 is starting off. For me, it's just something that Disney Plus MCU realm is doing well. The casting like is something that really does it for me. Like I think
Hmm.
the chemistry between Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson is fantastic.
Agreed.
But really just even everybody who's on the show, and even with Ki Hui Kwan coming onto the show, like he's perfect for the role that he's playing.
Yep.
And he's also a great actor. He just won an Academy Award for Everything Always at Once.
Everywhere, every time, all the wares, everyone.
All the wares, elsewheres, here's and there's. But yeah, like he's a great actor. He's somebody that we also grew up with, also tied to Lucasfilm with Indiana Jones, and
Hmm.
it's really cool to see him like kind of back in this light, and just being Ki Hui Kwan, bringing a character to life that's like intriguing.
Yeah,
So
I agree. Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. Maybe if something is coming out when this is ending, we'll do another one of these. But
yeah, so
yeah,
this is completely sporadic. Like, well, in a sense, we kind of talked about it and we're like, yeah, we're doing it. So every once in a while, Box Office Buds episode 2
we'll bust
might
it out at
be
some point.
at some point,
I'm trying to
but
think of what else is coming up. I think we picked a bad time with the writer's strike. We're probably gonna have not a whole lot of new stuff coming out for a little bit.
there's gonna be some delays between episode 1 and 2.
Yeah, I would imagine. But yeah, no, it
um,
was fun to just be able to talk this and not feel like we had to rush to get to some comics or what have you.
yeah, so I like how, yeah, to wrap it all up for me, I like how Ahsoka continued this like story of, essentially it's still kind of a just in the legacy of the Jedi, like it's kind of a Skywalker story. And I just really liked how that show was done to keep representing that story as well as bringing in new aspects. And then Loki, I just enjoy because it's fun. I just really like the character. I really like Tom Hiddleston playing the character, and the way it's shot and just the vibe it gives off. The way, like, even just like the, I don't know, the tint of how
Hmm.
they shoot
The
it.
color
Like
palette.
the color palette. Like I love everything about Loki. Is it a
Yeah.
perfect show? No, like not there doesn't exist. But I just,
Scrubs.
yeah.
Well, Scrubs didn't age well in a lot of its jokes.
Scrubs is
But
not aged well. A lot of the jokes we used to say to each
Sopranos.
other from Scrubs, we cannot say anymore.
No, we cannot. But oh man, I just realized we don't have a sign off for this.
um,
Well, I guess before we get to the sign off, do you want to tell people what they should do, where they can find us?
Yeah, so the box office buds are incognito pullbox pals, and that's where you can
Surprise.
find us on most social media platforms. You can find us at the pullbox pals. If you're having trouble finding us on a certain platform, the easiest thing to do is just go to our Instagram because our link tree is there, and I think our link tree is everywhere. I think that's how
Yeah,
trees
pretty
link it
much.
working. And you can find me at mad_nerdy on Instagram. You can find Monk at that Monk Guy 89 on Instagram. We do most of our conversations over there on Instagram. That's why I keep repeating it. And but yeah, we do put our little TikToks up and YouTube shorts. And when we go live, we're on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch.
Yeah. So make sure that you like, subscribe, do all that stuff. You know what to do. All the stuff that all your other favorite YouTube sensations love to ask you to do.
Smash that like button.
Smash it. Well, let's see, bud. I'm going to throw you on the spot. You got an outro for us?
Nothing. Premium quality shows and movies. I don't. I was still on the spot. I looked at the first words I saw in my room, and there's a Chargers pennant hanging here with its tag still on it.
The only thing that popped into my head for some reason, and probably because we're in spooky time, was just me going, "Bubble, bubble, toil and trouble." Bye, everybody. That was a terrible outro. I promise you, the next time we do this, we'll think of something more clever than better. Yeah. Box. I'm trying to think. It's far too late now. That's all, folks. That's Warner Brothers. I don't know. Good night.